Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Narrative, The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. I'm Cedric Scott Jr., your host, and I'm excited about today's guest and just hearing more of these stories. And we actually have somebody who is going to be talking a little bit about the career space and some of the work that's happening there and how AI is making its way. Because I know a lot of people in the job search and that type of thing are definitely trying to consider what's happening with the technology whenever it comes to my resume and all these things. So we got somebody here who can definitely answer some of those questions and also give some great insight into just experience and currently where you are in creating. So we have Deja White. My sister's name is Deja as well. But I want you to first just give us some introduction to your background, and then we'll go into talking about your work with Break Room Buddha and how you're leveraging AI there.
Sure. I never know how to introduce myself because I've lived many lives in the span of my career. I'm a career marketer. So my whole career has been in marketing, working with entertainment companies, tech companies, nonprofits, social impact groups, all of the things that you can think of. The basis of marketing is the same, no matter where you go. You're trying to connect with an audience, tell a story, and you have to learn how to position yourself. I sort of took the insights and the strategies and tactics that I learned in marketing and then just placed it on myself. Like, how can I market myself? How can I brand myself? How can I move into a space and connect with an audience of people? And that's sort of how Break Room Buddha was born. Break Room Buddha started off as a blog, sort of like the day in the lives that you see people posting on TikTok now, but just in blog form. I'd write articles about what I was experiencing as a young professional. Both my parents are educators, they work in the school system. I was sort of entering this corporate life and corporate space, and I felt kind of alone because it's a new space. I didn't really know who to lean on to get advice. So that's where that blog was born. From that blog, it's had many hats just like me. So I've had interview series, I've created tools and digital products, all the things under the sun. Every time a new technology comes out, I'm like, how can I leverage it to do something with Break Room Buddha, and be as creative as possible? So now with AI, I've done the same thing. Break Room Buddha has been around for about 5 years. And I've expanded it, and now I use AI to co-create blog articles. I developed AI tools that lives on separate websites that people can use to help dig into their career a little bit more. But I just love to help people with their careers because I knew where I was when I was starting, and that is just like a one-stop shop so that people can level up in their career and their life. So happy to dive a little bit deeper on how I use AI to do it all too.
Yes, and excited to have you, especially I didn't know about your parents' background working in education and being a career changer myself. Working in schools previously and then moving into more of the ed tech side of things is definitely really intriguing from the career perspective. So I'll be interested to hear your insights, just that people can kind of pick up and take away. I know you have some really practical information, and even some of the tools and resources that you've created. So uh, really excited to get into that. But I want to start with our driving question that I'm asking all of our guests as we get into these conversations, which is, what does narrative mean to you?
Mm, I love that question. Like I said, I'm a marketer, but I'm a storyteller first. And I think it's all about the stories that we tell ourselves, that we tell other people. It basically drives how we live our life. I'm really big on life design as well. So that's what it means to me. Like, how are you telling stories? How are you telling this? What are the stories that you're telling to yourself? Because that creates your reality. And then what are the stories you're telling to other people? Because that also creates your reality, how people see you, how you show up, what you tell them. That's sort of the way that your life will go. So I constantly rewrite my story. I'm like, what do I learn today? What are the things that I'm watching? What are the things that I'm consuming? What are the things that I'm creating? How does that make me look in the spaces that I'm entering? All of it is storytelling. So I think narratives are stories that we tell ourselves and other people. And until we get it right, we can never really get it right. Life is a journey. But until we get it right in the sense where we're happy, and moving in a space that we feel that we belong, I think our lives are kind of out of whack. So I believe deeply in stories and narrative and making sure that we are constantly checking in with ourselves. So that's what it means to me.
It, you said something that is kind of interesting to me. I don't know that I've ever heard that phrase, life design. Can you expand on that a little bit before we
Mhm.
move into the next phase of questioning? Because I'm interested to just break that down a little bit because you
Yeah.
don't hear that all the time. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah. So the way that I approach things is always mindset first. So that starts with like the stories that we tell ourselves. What do we think we can and can't do? I don't think we can't do anything. I think we can do anything that we put our mind to. It's very cliche, but it really does start with the mind. What are you telling yourself you can do today? Action comes into play because once you tell yourself you can do something, then you have to start to take action to live out that dream, that story, whatever it is that's playing. What are you consuming? Those are more stories that are created in our lives and in our world. The media that we watch, the news that we watch, everything that we consume, we're basically downloading things that other people have downloaded into their minds. I don't know. It's starting to sound like very woo woo and puzzly. But long stories short, when you consume things, you are consuming what other people have interpreted in their own lives. So that contributes to a story or narrative that you tell yourself and how you live. And then once again, when you're talking to other people, the stories that you're then telling them, that's painting the picture on how they view you as a person. So it's all connected. Like it's all a narrative, it's all a story. It all can be made up at any point, which makes life it's like a dream. It's all still sounding very woo-woo and puzzly, but life is really when you think about it, it's like a dream, it's a story, it really is. And that's how I view like life and narrative and everything that I do. And like I'm like a person that's like, whatever, I live life to the fullest. Anything you put your mind to, you can do it. That's always been my vibe. My friends call me like a free spirit a lot of times. My parents don't know what to do with me. So like when I think of narrative, that's what I think about. It's like you are creating your life, you are creating the stories that you tell yourself and you tell other people. So that's my deep dive on stories and narrative.
And that's kind of refreshing just to hear, it's like a dream and it's yeah. I mean, I get how it could be viewed as kind of whimsical in kind of nature, but I think there's something to that. And I think that that also speaks to your energy and who you are as a person and what you put out into the world and how you're helping other people. And I wanted to go a little bit actually into, I guess, your journey more so related to tech and AI, a little bit more specifically, and
Yeah.
how you got started in those spaces. Can you tell a little bit of your background, like in terms of that journey? Like, how did you get
Yeah.
started leveraging tech, AI, and what led you to where you are right now?
Yeah. Oh, I think what we see as we're growing up contributes tremendously to how we turn out as adults. So my dad actually works in technology. He's like a hands-on software guy. A computer breaks, he can fix it like that. He can rebuild databases and all the things that I can't really describe. I am not a software girly, but I grew up with like a computer. I grew up being able to access the internet. When I was in high school, my dad there was like a computer programming class or a coding class and he was like, you are taking this class. I was like, okay, I'll take a computer coding class, whatever. And I liked it. Like I'd always grown up on the computer. I was a blogger, so I was always on Tumblr messing around with templates and things like that. And by my dad insisting that I take this coding class, he kind of set me up for success for my entire career without me even knowing it. So that's like pivotal moment one. I took a coding class in high school. I moved on to college and I was a film and TV production major. I was like, I am going to be a film director. I love like Jerry Bruckheimer. I love like Kenny Ortega. These are just like directors. I was like, I love these people. I'm going to be the next one of those people. I get to college and I'm like, I don't like set life. Like my life was made for more. I can't be sitting around all day. So I will not be a film director. I will not be a film writer. I won't do that. But I stuck with it. I didn't change my major because I'm like, I'm having fun making student films. And like, What else can I ask for? What I did do is add a certificate. It was something called a new media certificate. And it was an alternative to me becoming a computer science like double major minor. I knew that I still liked like technology. I really liked developing like pretty websites and pretty mobile interfaces. And I was like, I will be now, I no longer want to be a film director. I will be a product designer in the tech industry. I had my mindset. I was like, what do I need to do? Okay, minor in computer science, do all these things. I went into like the office and they're like, no, you have to go back and take all these math classes if you want to be a computer science double major or minor. And I was like, I'm not retaking classes, especially math. So that's where this new media certificate came into play. It was basically kind of like a low key version of computer science. Like we took more web development classes. I took some graphic design classes under that certificate. I learned how to code an app and I developed an app for Apple iPhones. It was like way, way back in the day, very clunky. Me and my partner literally learned how to code one of the features from like a 15-year-old from Poland or something. It was so crazy. He was the only person who had a video on YouTube helping us solve this one specific problem. That's how new developing apps on iPhones were when I took this class. And then so that kind of set me up for success part two. I'm working in tech. I was like, this changed my, there goes back to what you consume, what you think is possible. It just changed my mindset on what I could do after I graduated college. So I went through that program successfully. One of my last jobs on campus was a web developer for an on campus department. And I led with that when I was entering the workplace. And I ended up landing an internship at Uber. It was Uber's first design class. They never had creative interns. So I was in that first class and I was the first ever intern on the team that I was interning for. It was on the creative marketing department and it was on like their design and content operations team. I wasn't doing a ton of like text like I wasn't hired to do anything tech related, but when I got in there, I redid their entire web pages for their internal databases. I was interviewing employees and basically telling stories like Uber's story. It was during a time that Uber was a little bit shaky in faith internally, but I came in there and I was able to help them sort of rebrand internally using some of those coding skills that I learned, using some of my film degree that I didn't think I needed. So that was another pivotal moment, part two, because I learned how to take pieces from my background and plug it into new environments. So I've always, since that time, I've always teetered the line between design, technology, marketing, storytelling. And throughout my career, my piece of tech that I've held on to was my coding ability. Every single job I've had to code an email template, a web page, help communicate the things that we need on from a creative lens to a technical team. Like it all helps even if I'm not the one hard coding anything. So that was my journey into tech, and how I've sort of added like a creative spin to it because I learned early on that I don't want to be coding nonstop all day every day. You're laughing, it's a struggle. I was like, I don't want to be coding all day every day. So how can I use that skill that I have, but move on to something that's a little bit more creative and have that help me leverage in those creative spaces where someone else might not know how to code. So that's sort of how I've played at that tech stream throughout my career.
That is quite a story and back a series of stories, I'll say. But no, I didn't know a few of those things about you, the Uber story. Wow. And then just even thinking about how you were able to navigate while in school and realize, well, I have an interest in this. I can see myself doing something in this world. And I think having some of the foresight to realize at that point in time that this probably makes a lot of sense, going into
Mhm.
consideration for the future, which is amazing. And what you've been able to do now is, not only kind of elevate yourself in terms of career focus, but then also positioning yourself in the space of more of that expert in terms of
Mhm.
helping other people in their careers. So, can we talk a little bit about Break Room Buddha? And first, what was your motivation, behind starting this project, business, company, initiative?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about how did it come to life?
Yeah. Okay. So I like to tell people there are two things that inspired Break Room Buddha. Like most things, it was born a little bit out of frustration. I was in a role during the time where I felt like I wasn't able to be as creative as I wanted to be. I'm someone who's just like, I have a creative idea, I got to execute that thing. So that's where I was in my career. I think I was about 2 to 3 years out of college into my first big girl job. And I was like, I have this itch. I have to do more. I've always been a blogger since high school. I had Tumblr pages, blogger.com, all of the things. So I was like, that's a medium that I know that I can control, that I know I have a handle on. So I was like, okay, I'll start a blog. I had also started getting hit up on LinkedIn pretty frequently. This was before the LinkedIn top voice badges and a bunch of people following. I never imagined going down that path. But early on into my career, college students started reaching out to me and they're like, I see that you have these roles at these big name companies. How are you doing it? Like, you just graduated college and you already have this big girl job. What are you doing? So I was like, all right, I want to be creative. I know I can start a blog, and people are actively asking me questions. And a lot of times it was the same questions over and over again. How does your resume look? How do you do the interview? How did you go about applying to that place? The questions in the career space are all the same. So I was like, I'm going to create a blog, a place that's a one-stop shop that answers every single question under the sun that someone might have about getting a job after college. And I'll just put it on this page. So that's how Break Room Booter was born. It happened probably over the span of 2 weeks. I went to a blogger event for women in Atlanta and met a bunch of other bloggers, and they gave us like tactics on like how to put together a blog, how to find your audience. After leaving that event, I did a random name generator online and got a bunch of different names. I put them together and mashed them up, and that's kind of how the name Break Room Buddha was born. I put up a page. I come from a technical background, so I knew how to put together a website. So I put that together in a couple of hours. I bought a domain, I bought all the things. I sent the name around to friends and family to get some feedback. But then after that, I just launched it. A lot of times I'm like, if I have an idea, it's coming from somewhere, someone needs it, so I'm going to launch it. So that's what happened. And all of that happened probably over the span of like 2 weeks, and I was up and running, and the same website that you see is the same website that I put together 5 years ago. I've made some design changes, added some elements, but it's been that. And I'm not going to change it. Not that much.
I want to pinpoint one particular aspect for a moment of
Mhm.
what you created within Break Room Buddha. You've actually set up an AI tool and system,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I've necessarily seen, or especially not anybody I've just had open conversations with about anybody who's produced something like that. So can you tell us a little bit about what that tool is, how it's used, and just how?
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure. So I'll walk it back a little bit from how this idea was born. So maybe 3 years until Break Room Buddha, I wanted like a chat bot on my website. I was like, what if there was a tool where if someone asked a question, they were able to get a direct answer based on everything that I've written across Break Room Buddha. At that point, it probably was 50 something articles, and it just didn't exist. I was like, I don't know how to build the thing. I don't want to figure out how to build the thing to crawl my website in order to get very specific answers for people. Maybe like last year or maybe 2 years ago, there was a tool that came out that would allow people to easily use AI to crawl your web page and then answer a direct question that someone had coming to your website. So I put that on my website, and then someone asked a question, that literally my web crawl could not answer. And I was like, "Ugh, this is not the way. This can't be where I land." So last year, I think AI kind of took off and blew up, and now agents are a thing. So I went on to create like an agent using Chat GPT, and then I prompted it to sort of answer the way that I would answer, but it still kind of wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I went to an outside company and I hired people to help me develop an AI tool that would, one, serve as like a career coach. So if someone didn't feel like reading my entire website, they could easily ask a question, and then my AI tool would answer that question for them in a way that I might answer it. So it's like a proxy me. And that was like step one. That tool was doing well. Once again, my parents are educators. So I was like, give this to some of your students, have them play around with it, have them answer questions. And the students were asking questions about like college and majors and things like that. So that was step one. I think I developed that early January of this year or February. And then I was like, I want more. People still reach out to me on LinkedIn. They're like, can you check my resume? Can you help do mock interviews? Can you? I'm like, I'm one person. I cannot. So I need to expand this tool. So I added another tool within that tool. And it is a resume analyzer. It upload your resume. It scans your resume and a job description that you place in the tool. And then it'll tell you if you're overqualified, underqualified, or qualified for a job. It'll give you a brief overview of why you are qualified or unqualified or overqualified. And then one thing that people struggle with a lot is resume bullet points. So it'll also give you resume bullet points that you could consider adding to your resume based on the job description that you've put into the tool. Now, I had the idea to add that piece into the tool because I have a very low-fi version on my website now that's just like a form. It's DIY resume bullet points, fill in the form, and then it gives you resume bullet points. And that's to this day still one of the top used tools on my website. So I was like, I'll just make it a little bit easier and I'll put it in an AI tool for people too. So that's tool number one. I'm also a career coach for some women in media, and some of the folks have been asking me to help them do mock interviews. So I was like, all right, I'm one person. I cannot do a ton of mock interviews for people either. So tool number two is a mock interview tool. So it walks you through an interview process. You put in the job that you're looking to interview for, and then it will use AI to start to feed some interview tools. So you don't have to know how to prompt at any point when you're using my tool. That's a number one barrier for people. So you just give it simple things and then it'll run that interview for you. It'll run that resume analyzer for you. And then there is one more tool. A lot of people struggle with what to do next in their career. I was one of those people. I was like, I am a marketing specialist, but like marketing is huge. What else can I do within the marketing industry? Marketing specialist is a blanket term because you could be doing one thing at one company and do something else at another company as a marketing specialist. So the third tool that I put together is like a career trajectory tool. You can put in your location, the current job that you have, and then the tool will give you little points of reference of where you could go next based on like your location and your current job. You're like, oh my gosh, so many things. But yes, this was my mind. My mind was doing all of this. I was like, how can I put all this into one tool? But once they do that career trajectory, it'll give them a description of the job. It'll give them the median salary of those jobs that they've given them. And then it'll give you the option of other jobs that you could work that are similar. Then you can click on those jobs and it'll open in a new tab current jobs and companies that are hiring for that job on LinkedIn. So like that tool does so much. Just talking about it, I'm like, and the team that I hired, we worked together. So I was like a prompt engineer. We had weekly calls where we talked through what the tool should look like, how it should work and function. If the tool was ever buggy or anything, we would hop on a call and knock it out and figure out why we were having so many problems. But that whole process took about 5 months to put together, and it's a fully functioning tool now. People have been using it. The resume analyzer is the most popular one, of course, but I'm super proud of the tool. I want to see it grow. And I'm excited. I'm excited about it. We're in the age of AI. People are warming up to it, and I think it'll help a lot of people who are struggling in their job search.
So, all right, so let me, because I really want people watching this interview, listening to it, to really be able to take away what you just laid out, right?
Yeah, a lot.
The practical component of it, but also the need based focus. Because as you mentioned, the resume kind of analyzer is the most used. And that to me, if you're active on LinkedIn, and for me, it's I more so have been supporting folks, more in the education and ed tech space,
Hmm.
in terms of career support pivots and questions and all that type of stuff. Those are definitely the pain points for a
Yeah.
lot of people in the job market, in their search or what have you. It's always, well, what's wrong with my resume? How do I make it
Hmm.
better? How do I refine it? And you also have, on the flip side of that, a lot of offerings for resume writers and that
Yep.
type of thing within that industry, which is a whole nother thing that people have to navigate and understand. But you're basically giving people, which is really cool to think about, the interview support.
Hmm.
That you said that you don't actually have to know how to prompt. I've heard
Nope.
of no code before, but now we're talking about no prompt in AI as well.
Yes.
I think it's important and impactful to highlight it, because for folks who maybe have been working in the same job, same industry for 15, 20 plus years, interviewing is kind of daunting. I think for many folks that I've spoken with, but then also engaging and interacting with AI, if you're not completely just kind of open to it and haven't been exploring, can be a little bit of a barrier to
Hmm.
entry. So you kind of remove a couple of really major concerns
Hmm.
and worries for people. So building out the tools, because you mentioned different points in working with a team and working out bugs and things like that related to the tools and things that you've created, and even just Breakroom Buddha as
Hmm.
an entity. Can you share any insights related to unique challenges that you faced as you were growing and developing over the last 5 years?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've run into is moving from like a solopreneur mindset to like actual entrepreneur. I say solopreneurs are entrepreneurs, but I think it's like a different mindset. When you're a solopreneur, you're like, I hold the key, I know everything, I know what to do to get all the things done. And I was like, I need to kind of step out of that and start hiring some people to help me do some things and grow. Um and it was nerve-wracking. It's a little bit nervous to like, I was nervous to hire people because I'm like, I have 5 years worth of knowledge. People can't read my mind. I have to put some standard operating procedures in place before they enter into my space, like give them the keys to my website, give them the passwords to things. I'm like, I just got to have it all tight. I come from an operations background professionally too, so I'm like, I just always think of like all the barriers that could happen to that would stop me from reaching whatever goal that I have for the team or person that I've hired. Like that's just the way that my mind works. So that was a challenge. Like how do I set up processes for myself? I can do it all day for other people, but for myself to make sure that the people that I'm bringing on understand the type of work that I need help with. So to be honest, that was the hardest part for me. I had a really good relationship with the team that I hired to help me build out this AI tool. And one thing that they've taught me is that development never ends. Like I will always need them. I will always need to lean on a team to make sure that the tool is up and running. When you work in the technology space or you're building out like SaaS tools or tools in general, you're often using third party tools to make your thing work. So as those third party tools upgrade, you have to also then upgrade. So like there it's just a whole new frontier, a whole new world of things that I constantly am learning and also learning how to lean on other people. Like I said, within Break Room Buddha, I do a lot of things. So, one thing that I created using AI was an affirmation journal, and I hired someone to help me with the creative direction for that as well. So, we've soft launched it and have like a preview version of it, and we plan to launch four more versions of it in a over maybe the next month or so. That's something else that I've been working on and I've been able to branch out into because I've hired someone. And then I also hired like somebody to help write newsletters for me. And that allowed me to enter into doing workshops and speaking to organizations and things like that. So like I've learned that hiring people helps open more doors because you have more time and energy to explore other things. So that's the number one thing, number one lesson. You can be a solopreneur, but you have to sort of shift your mindset eventually and start hiring people so that you can level up and start to get some wind behind your business that you're developing. So that's my biggest lessons.
I hear you on that, and I receive it
Yeah.
completely for sure. And yeah, those are really valuable insights, I think, for anybody, kind of moving in space, and especially if you're building anything, creating anything in any type of production type of phase. You see
Mhm.
what's at the forefront, the website, the tools. Yes, this thing is great, it works, but how all of those pieces actually come together and connect, and what you have to go through on the back end of that is not necessarily as pronounced and
Mhm.
shared openly, as the actual thing in the successful growth. And people, we always see that, right? We see the shiny
Yep.
aesthetic, and oh, this is awesome, but how did we get here? And so
Yep.
I think that that's valuable. And actually, I want to go a little bit into, you just mentioned an affirmation journal.
Yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit? I know you're in the soft launch phase of that, but can you share just what is that thing?
Yeah.
What is kind of the primary function? How will people engage with it?
Yeah. So this was an idea, me and my ideas. I had this idea to create an affirmation journal that would serve someone for an entire year. And I'm like, how can I serve someone for an entire year with an affirmation journal? So within that journal, it's one affirmation, it's an adult coloring page that relates to that affirmation. It's a journaling prompt that relates to that affirmation. It's a word find activity that relates to that affirmation. It's like a few goal setting pages and also like a vision boarding type page that people can interact with. And that all serves someone for 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, it's a new affirmation, and you have all of those activities and pages to help you start to tell better stories to yourself. Like, I am worthy. If you're working on activities for 2 weeks that you constantly see the words, I am worthy, you're envisioning your life of what it might look like when you say these words constantly that you're worthy. You're setting goals, you're coloring in a picture that represents I am worthy. By the end of those 2 weeks, you will know that you are worthy of whatever the thing is that you are telling yourself you're worthy of. So that was my idea. I'm like, how can I put together something that will like fundamentally shake up someone's life and help them step into whatever they're dreaming about, whatever they want to step into. So that is where that idea came from, to create the affirmation journal. I don't always have a team of people to help me move where I need to move. So I was like, ChatGPT will be that person. You are my teammate. Help me come up with some affirmations. Help me sort of lay out how the book should look and feel. What are the colors? We decide. So the book was really, really big. So we decided to split it up in seasons. So I used ChatGPT to help me place all of my affirmations in the right seasons, to give me some color schemes for that season so that I can then transfer that to the book. And then my creative director that I hired, she was in charge of finding my illustrator. So all of the images that are illustrated in the book, We all worked together, me, her, and the illustrator, to come up with some images that represented all of the affirmations that we put together. But every step of the way, AI was there helping. I have word searches in the book. I used AI to help me come up with some words that represented my affirmations that I put in the book. So AI, ChatGPT in this case, was the fourth teammate that helped me build that affirmation book. The soft launch right now, I put it up on Amazon and people are able to purchase like a condensed version of it. If they order it, they'll get about a month's worth of affirmations. That includes those adult coloring pages, those word find activities, and those journaling prompts that I mentioned. But for the full launch, it'll be 4 books, and they will all cover winter, summer, fall, and spring. So there'll be one affirmation book for each season. So that is my overall vision. I'm excited for it. I already have some folks who will put it in their workplace because workplaces are stressful. Having some books or things that people can escape their desk and then go do the work, and some affirmations reaffirming things is also cool, and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to provide that to them in the workplace. So I'm just excited. I think it all goes under my umbrella of life design, clarity, making sure you're set up for success and whatever you want to do in life. That's always been my vibe. That's always what I like to talk about, and I'm glad that I'm able to now put that inside of like a book for people. So I'm excited.
It's it's really just awesome, I think, to hear how people's minds just formulate. Because I can recall, I think when I was first introduced to your work and just you by our good friend Devonna May. Shout
Mhm.
um she introduced you to me as another member of the what we call the multi hive gang with
Yeah,
all the
Leo.
multi people. And I'm seeing that now, how you're saying it all comes underneath this umbrella. And I'm like, I use the same analogy for everything. And my umbrella is educational empowerment. And that's beautiful. Definitely looking forward to supporting the series of books. And even just right now with where you are with the launch of the initial kind of phase, because I think, yes, to your point around stress, just what's happening in the workspace in environments is really difficult, I think, for many people to navigate, and it's tough, where we are in the world and just the state of things. So creating something like that to have in that space is definitely going to be beneficial for someone, for sure. So thanks
Yeah.
for creating that and putting it out there. And yeah, just building off of that and kind of thinking about the work that you've been doing. You've shared some really like high level great things, but I guess let's think about your support for people, because I know that's kind of at the core of your work.
Yep.
Can you share any exciting outcomes just related to what you've seen in
Yeah.
support of other people, and what that looks like in practice and in real life?
Yeah. So I like to serve as a mentor to people first. And a lot of times when you do that, you don't always go back to ask people how they're doing. Like people will they'll start this mentorship journey, they'll start to soar and they're like, "Ah, I got it from here. You're good." But every now and then people will reach back out to me and tell me how I've helped them or how I've inspired them just by showing up. So there are a couple of people on LinkedIn that I talk to frequently who are doing their thing. They're showing out. And they come back and they say, I started posting on LinkedIn, or I started doing this thing, or I'm not afraid to use AI, or I'm not, all of these things. I'm not. They'll come to me and they'll say things like, thank you so much for the work that you do. The AI tool that I have now, someone used it for their resume and they say, thank you. This is approachable to me. This is simple. This is easy to use. So that is all that I aspire to do. Like, help people see that things are possible. I can use AI. I can show up and post on LinkedIn. I can design the life that I want to live. I don't have to have a normal 9 to 5 job. Whatever it is, I like to be the representative and the proxy to have people know that they can do whatever it is that they want to do in their lives. So a lot of the outcome that I see is when people come back and talk to me. So I'll have conversations with them. They'll send me DMs. They'll post and tag me on things on LinkedIn. That's how I know I've helped. That's how I know I've impacted with people. And then I try to talk to people that show up frequently in my community as well. So I'm like, this is how I know I'm making impact. I'll host events in my local community. That's how I know I'm making impact. That's how I know I'm showing up. I like to have one-on-one connections with people. And a lot of times that's hard to scale, which is why I try to create tools and things that are connected to me and that are direct extensions of me. That's sort of how I show up and know that I'm making an impact. And from doing all of those things, talking to people on LinkedIn, doing workshops and events in person, I've probably touched thousands of people, and I'm grateful to keep doing it. I try not to keep count because you'll get tired if you start to try to keep count of all the people that you help and cross paths with. But when people reach out and tell me that they're doing well or that they're pursuing something that they put their mind to because of the content, because of a conversation with me, then I'm a-okay.
There's definitely some ties that I hear to your personal journey
Yeah.
and how that shows up in the work that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how has your personal journey and background shaped the way that you approach the work that you're doing? And then also, I'm also just really curious if there are certain guiding values and
Mm,
principles that you have in place that
yeah.
are also what are carrying you through with what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As I answered another question you had, I was like, ooh, I need to talk about how my life in the corporate world has shaped all the things and all my values and all the things that I believe in. So every single workplace I've been in has shaped me and made me a stronger person, a stronger professional, I would say. And in being a professional, I'm like, we don't go to school to be professionals. I know if I'm going through a negative work environment, somebody else is going through a negative work environment. Quick backstory: the affirmation journal is something that I needed when I was going through a negative work environment. So everything that I create is born from an experience that I've had in the workplace. When I created Break Room Buddha, I didn't have the opportunity to be as creative as I wanted to be. So I created something where I could be creative. The affirmation journal, negative work environment, I created something that version of me needed when I was in that space. The AI tools, I don't have a ton of money to spend on a career coach, a resume writer. I experienced a layoff and I had the opportunity to experience an outplacement service. A lot of people don't have access to an outplacement service, but that AI tool could be their outplacement service. So like all the things that I experienced, I'm like, how I've been very privileged at a high level in my career in the workspaces that I've entered. How can I give access in some capacity to other people who may never work in a tech company or a startup where they get an outplacement service or have access to a mentor? My blog serves as a complete mentor. Like without ever talking to me, you know how I think, you know how I approach my career, you know where I've been in my career, how I got there, how I got the job, what the interview questions were. You never have to have a conversation with me, but you have a mentor because I've chosen to share all of my knowledge on a blog. So that is how I function and how I've built what I've built with Break Room Buddha. I'm like, how can I take everything that I've had access to and give it to people who do not have access to that thing? It may not be the exact thing that I've had, for instance, that outplacement service, but you have access to a very inexpensive AI tool that basically does the same thing that the outplacement service did for me. So that's sort of how I approach everything. Every piece of my journeys journey is in everything that I create, from the content on LinkedIn all the way to the content and tools on my blog. And my guiding principles, I lead with curiosity a lot of times. If I'm curious about something, I will do that thing tomorrow. I'm like, that's the only way I'll know if that thing is worth my time and energy. Just launching like a lo-fi version of something that I'm interested in. That's one of my values. Another one of my values is fun. My mom gets on me all the time. She's like, you just want to always have fun. And I'm like, of course. Why? We are here to have fun. Life is not supposed to be boring. So yeah, everything I do, I'm like, it has to be fun or I'm not doing it. I'm a quitter. I will quit, and like I will quit. Like I can't do it. There's something in me that like, I get really, really anxious. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I'm not supposed to be, this is not a part of my purpose or mission. It's like an inner voice. I think everyone has it, but I don't think everyone listens to it. But I just listen to it. I get really, really impatient. And I'm like, all right, it's time to move on. This is no longer fun. Let me go follow my curiosity and make it fun again. That gets me in trouble sometimes. A lot of people around me tell me to slow down a lot of times because of me following that fun bug and that curiosity bug. But it's helped me so far, and I've been in some pretty cool spaces because of it. And then a third principle, it always goes back to people. I believe so much in community. I had this conversation with someone recently. It was like a career coach that I have in my life. And she was just asking me where my spark comes from when it comes to community. And I told her I realized I've always been a part of a team. My dad was a coach. He still is a coach. He was a softball coach. So I grew up playing softball. I grew up doing cheerleading. In college, I was on the rowing team. So I'm like, I've always been a part of some kind of sport or community. And then I was definitely the kid that signed up to like the 4-H clubs and all the other clubs under the sun. So once again, that was another community environment. And I realized when you enter into the workforce, you're kind of alone a lot of times. So you have to seek out those communities. So since the beginning of my career, I've always been a part of some kind of community, whether it's in the workplace, like an employee resource group, or out of the workplace in some local communities and organizations. So my third value is to always be a part of a community or find some type of community, because it just helps you. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you sane. So I think those are like my three values, whether I'm building something for Break Room Buddha or I'm just working with another company on a project or something like that.
The last one I'm definitely seeing as going from being a part of, like an ERG or something like that, those employee resource groups. But I've seen now what it looks like is that you're positioning to actually be the one creating some of those communities for
Yeah.
people. So again, going back into what you mentioned around basically providing the things and the tools and resources that you would have needed, and I can speak for myself as well, that I think I can still use some of that stuff to
Mhm.
this point. And now being able to put those things in place based on your experience, but also your creativity and ideation. I think the one common thread and thing that I'm hearing a lot in the conversations that I'm having for the road to 100 is the the focus on not just the idea, but actually executing on the
Mm.
idea,
Mhm.
realizing that the journey to launch is actually a lot shorter than you might think.
Mhm.
Actually taking that thing and saying, you know what, I'm just going to do it and see
Mhm.
what happens is really what I'm hearing commonly, and seeing the benefits of people taking those steps. So I see you as one of those people that's not just
Yeah.
talking about it, you're actually
Yeah.
moving in that space, which again is helping people, and it's growing and building sustainability in communities, and really propelling other people forward while also being able to produce and build something for yourself. Before we wrap up, I do have one fun question for you.
Yes.
If you had unlimited resources,
Ooh.
how would that expand the reach of Break Room Buddha and the work you're doing?
Ooh, unlimited resources. I I read a lot of books, personal development books, and I listen to a lot of podcasts like How I Built This, how people built their companies from the ground up. And a notion that keeps coming to me now that I've heard how people run their empires is that Break Room Buddha would sort of be a holding company. And I would have different pockets or businesses staffed with people who are operating in their zone of genius who could get that work done under that Break Room Buddha umbrella. And of course, it'll all revolve around life design, human potential, and career development. But if I had unlimited resources, that is exactly what I would do. I would just have a holding company, and I would have all my little mini projects that I do would be full blown businesses that will be running and operating with the people in place to help me reach whatever mission or goal that I have for each of those companies. So that is exactly what I would do. If anyone wants to be an investor and help me make my holding company dreams come true and all my little mini business dreams come true, that would be wonderful and amazing.
Yeah, I think you're in my brain. Maybe that's the the multi hype nature, but that sounds amazing, and you heard it here first. It's going to happen.
It will happen.
So we're at the beginning stages of your holding company, and your first official interview talking about it was
Yes.
right here with Black AI Media. Really appreciated you taking the time to share your background, your story, your narrative, talk about what you're doing with Break Room Buddha. One of the final questions I want to ask is
Mhm.
just thinking more so about future,
Mhm.
um, and really consideration for the impact that not really just the work in your organization or company or initiative will instill in the world, but you as a person, right? As Deja
Yeah.
White, what legacy do you hope to leave behind, especially when it comes to the world of technology and AI?
Yeah. So this question actually came up recently for me. I do a lot of introspective and thinking about my journey in general. And I feel like I was put here to be a light. I like a light in general, be a guiding force to help people do what they need to do in order to reach their purpose in life. And I always use technology to do it. I think AI is just one piece of technology that people can use to reach their maximum impact, to reach that purpose and serve whatever purpose they're here to serve. So I hope to be that connector, to be that foundational piece for people, to be that resource that helps them like that thing click in their mind to help them do whatever they need to get done. And I'll continue to use AI and technology to do it. I think it just makes life so much easier. It a lot of times serves as my chief of staff, my creative director, my partner in crime. So that's the impact that I hope to leave. Just helping people reach that impact that they need to reach. I think so many people are stuck doing things that have nothing that they basically have no business doing. Like you have no business working in a warehouse when you can draw beautifully. Like what? Go out, go create some comic books, go author some children's books, go do some murals on the side of the building. You're not supposed to be in that place. So I am the person to tell people they're not supposed to be in that place. Go do what you're actually supposed to be doing so you can change the world. And that's how I think I'll leave my impact and how I would also change the world. So that's me.
Well, Deja, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I know that anybody who is listening, if they haven't picked up at least 3 to 5 really amazing points, actionable items that you can implement yourself, because I know that I'm going to take some of these things away. And before we go ahead and get out of here, can you let everybody know where they can get in touch with you, how they can, get access to your tools and support your work?
Yeah, for sure. So I love to talk so much. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Deja White. Just type in Deja White, Break Room Buddha. I should be the first person to pop up. If you want to reach me and you're unable to reach me, go to breakroombuddha.com. That is where my mind lives and it will forever be there. I am your unofficial mentor when you are on that website. It has a ton of information documenting the very beginning of my career all the way till now. So that's about 10 years. And then if you want to use the AI tools that we talked about, you can go to aicareercopilot.com, get your resume analyzed, practice your interview, map out your career, do whatever you need to do to help you be successful. And that's it for now. We'll see what else I get into before the year ends. But thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to reach all the people you have in your community. I got to whip them into shape too.
Well, we're glad to have you. I'm glad that you're the person to do that particular work. Very valuable, extremely necessary, in the current climate in terms of the workforce and just career growth and exposure for a lot of people. So really excited to continue to not only share, what you got going on, but just even be a supporter. And yeah, looking forward to what you do next. And we'll be right there cheering you on. So
Thank you.
thanks again, Deja, for joining us. And for everybody that is tuning in, thank you for continuing to come back. Make sure that you check out all of the interviews for the Road to 100 under Black AI Media. Go to blackaimedia.com, continue to support and reach out if there's any supports that we can offer you. So, with that, thanks again. Peace.